Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. Today we're all about covers.
All about them.
All
This is a
about
big
'em.
one.
Yeah, the cover stage is my favorite part of the publication process. It's one of those moments where I feel like, yeah, it feels real when you do the contract, when you get your first advancement. But this is the moment where it feels fully real. It's like, the book has a cover, and that's how we're going to identify it from now on. It's a really cool feeling. I will also say it's one of the most stressful things. I think that there's a lot of expectation that surrounds covers. So for me, that provides anxiety for what the author is going to think. Because there's a lot that goes into making a cover.
Yeah, and there's a lot of expectation, I think, on the author end. Let go of that. Let go of your vision of the cover, first of all.
Yeah.
I want to say one thing, because I think the most important thing that I want to get across at the beginning of this conversation is involve your agent always.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of experience with publishers and covers and a lot of thoughts and opinions here at BookEnds. We almost universally share them with the team and get everybody's opinions and thoughts so that it empowers you when we go back to the publisher with any changes we might want. Too often I've had authors who get excited because they see their cover for the first time, right? And they go back to their publisher and they approve it and then send it to us. And I had thoughts that maybe it could have been different or stronger, or even worse, they weren't 100% happy with it, but didn't know they could have a larger discussion. And you can always have a larger discussion.
Yeah, this is our job. So loop us in every step of the way, especially when you're unsure or not happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did a video a few weeks ago about titles. We called it All About Titles. This is sort of in the same series, but I think that the two videos are actually pretty similar. So I think covers and titles have a fairly similar goal and a fairly similar process. So for your cover, it's one of the first things people are going to think about when they think about your book, right? It's one of the first things people are going to see when they see your book. And often it's the thing that's going to stop someone in their tracks in a store or when they're scrolling on Barnes and Noble to look at what your book is about.
It matters.
So
it matters.
It matters. It's hugely important. And it is your best, most strategic, most important marketing element.
And that's key. Your cover is a marketing tool. And I think too often authors have gotten into the art aspect of a cover that doesn't necessarily sell books, or an image doesn't work on a cover. But when we see a cover in a bookstore, we get an immediate impression of the book. And that's what a cover is meant to do. It's to give your reader of an impression of, is this the kind of book that I'm looking for and like? It also needs to stand out. It needs to run a careful balance of being similar to very popular covers during that time, because that's clearly what readers are looking for, but also stand out from those covers in a different way so that readers know it's not something they've read before.
Yeah, and I think the thing that always comes to mind about covers is don't judge a book by a cover. But almost everybody does.
You do. You do.
And that's why it's important to know that there are trends and expectations for covers in genres. So knowing what's being released, knowing what publishers are doing on their covers, what kind of covers people are responding to, particularly readers, is hugely important to the process, and also important to your expectations as well. Like, I think it will definitely change your expectations and help you understand a publisher's decision. So a publisher is not just one person designs a cover, throws it at you, and says that's it. There are so many departments. Editorial is weighing in, marketing and publicity are weighing in, sales is weighing in, sometimes production is weighing in, and I'm sure I'm missing someone or some design, like some team somewhere.
Right. About 9 months before your book is set to publish, maybe even 12 months, to be honest, your editor will, like, if it's not your first book, if it's not the book you sold on, let's say it's the second book on a contract, your editor is going to reach out and say, I'm going into the cover meeting. Can you give me a brief synopsis of the book? Can you give me any thoughts you have on the cover? If they don't, that's fine. You can also send stuff along when you know this is coming, but they are going to sit down with the art department, the publisher, possibly the editor-in-chief, maybe marketing, publicity, sales, whoever's in there. They're going to sit down and have a meeting, and your editor's job, and this is where we talk so much about your editor being your advocate in-house and building that relationship. Your editor's job is to present the book to the art department about what the vision of the book is, how they're going to market and sell that book. So comp titles, they will bring in other covers of, we see this vision. They will talk specifically about if you're going to have characters on the cover, what do those characters look like? If there's going to be key elements like an animal or an object, what do those things look like? Here we have
Illustrated or photo.
Yep, illustrated or photo. Is it just a design, or is it a very specific thing? There's a lot of elements that go into it, and some of that will come up with the comp titles, because we want to, this is another way where comp titles play in. How are we going to market this book? Who is the audience? And here are the comp titles of the books that are selling and what they look like and what readers are buying right now. So they have this meeting, and then the artist and the art director go back and start the design. And this could happen in a different way, a number of different ways. There could be photo shoots, there could be clip art, there could be an artist who's drawing or painting, or there's a million different ways this could happen. At some point, you may get a sketch of the cover, or you may see the final design cover with the font and the color and everything.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to say too. There's so many different ways this can happen, and every publisher does it a little differently. And I will say sometimes different books are done differently within the same publisher. So sometimes you will get the sketch, sometimes you will get one final cover, sometimes you will get like 6 different designs for a cover. It really depends on like the results of that meeting and the vision that everybody is having. Because sometimes you will feel like this is the right direction. We want to present the author with this direction, and then see if there are tweaks to be made. Or sometimes it's like, well, I can see this going in a few different directions. These are the few different types we've had. So I just did one where we got photos. We got photos for a cookbook. We got photos with the author on the cover, and then we got illustrated. And there were different vibes that each of them brought across, different tones and different goals that each of those designs had. And it's been a conversation of, well, what do we want the cover to do? Who do we want the cover to grab? And then sometimes we'll get a cover like, this is what we think should be final. What do you think? And then we might have like, oh, maybe the font could be blue instead of white. Maybe this, and like those little tweaks that will be made on this one principal design. I will say in picture books, it's more common that this will happen with the illustrator, and then they'll present you with a final sketch or a final cover, and you will have some ideas for tweaks. Though I will say in picture books, it's very unlikely that, well, not very unlikely, but it's less common that covers get changed a ton, because the illustrator is usually principal part of designing it. But what I was trying to get at anyway, before I got distracted, is this can happen in all different ways. And you might publish 10 books, and every one of those books might have a different cover design process.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that your book is less than your friend's book because theirs went through a different process. It's just every publisher is different. I don't know. I think we did discuss this a little in titles, but one of the things I would strongly suggest is you have a right to an opinion, and you need to have that opinion known, and you need to discuss that and talk that out. It's always good to talk things out with your agent first to get perspective. But also remember that there are professionals on this, people who know what they're doing. In all the years I've done this job, I've maybe had 5 terrible covers. For the most part, they're great. I think we have to find that balance between this person knows what they're doing and they have this idea for a reason, versus I need to tweak every aspect of this and redraw it to the way I want it versus the publisher's vision, because there is a method to the madness in terms of sales and marketing. I've had many conversations where the author comes forward and says, I really want it to look exactly like this. And the publisher will say, I understand that, but that style cover is actually not working anymore. We're seeing a decline in those books. We're hearing from booksellers that too many covers look like that, and they're having a hard time moving those books because it now looks stale. So we're trying to go in a different direction to really grab the audience with something they haven't quite seen yet.
We've talked about it before about agents that you're hiring us and you're hiring us to work in your best interest too. And I think it's kind of the same when it comes to a publisher. You're hiring a publisher to publish your book and you're hiring their expertise. Like you're picking them usually for a reason. Those cover design teams, cover/design teams are talking to booksellers. They're talking to everybody they need to talk to. They're getting feedback on the covers that they've done for, last season's list or even this season's list. So they have an expertise that we don't have you don't have. As readers, you have preferences, that's totally fine, but our goal is to sell books, not to only make something that looks pretty. So it's really,
or that you just like, but
right,
doesn't, because there's a difference between I really like this versus this is going to sell books.
exactly. And I think the best covers have a little bit of both of that. They have something the author really loves, and they have something that's going to really hook a reader and hook the market. And I will say, most covers that are like, this isn't really, authors come to love them anyway. Yeah. I have not really had an author and on my list be like, I hate that cover and stick with it forever. Usually it grows on them.
Yeah, I think the best covers, honestly, are those that come to us and we're a little surprised.
Yeah.
It went in a direction that we didn't sort of imagine. And when we sit with it for a little bit, we're like, yeah, this is kind of cool. And I haven't quite seen anything. And I see the audience. And this is why we share it with the team. Because I've definitely gotten covers where I'm like, I don't know. And I'll put it out there and everybody here is like, oh my God, I think it's amazing, but they haven't read the book. Yeah. Well, that's the goal, right? The goal is to grab somebody who hasn't read the book rather than somebody who knows the book so intimately that you're obsessing over, well, the character really has blonde hair. Will some reader compare that the hair color is wrong on the cover compared to the book? Absolutely, because people complain about everything. Will it matter in the selling of the book? Like if they gave your protagonist dark hair in the cover because the background was yellow and the blonde hair like blended in and didn't pop, then go with it. Because only 1 or 2 readers are going to complain, but they bought your book. They bought your book, and that's the point.
Yeah, the BookEnds team, by the way, has definitely convinced me that I love covers that I thought I hated at first. Which brings me to my next point. I think it's really important that as soon as you get your cover, as soon as that email pings in your inbox, you're going to rush to look at it. Totally fine. Do not respond. Give yourself at least 24 hours. Look at them, print them out, tape them on your wall, tape them to your forehead. I don't care. Wait at least 24 hours before you even think about responding. You can say, thank you. I'm going to look. I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll get back to you Monday, whatever. Give yourself time to sit with it because our gut instincts are not always the right instincts when we're going up against the expectations of a cover we have in our head. It's really important to sit with it. Show your loved ones, show your friends, show your critique partners if you're interested and feel comfortable. Talk to your agent. And then when you've had a chance to be like, okay, this is what I feel. I felt this way for 2 days, not just 2 minutes. Then you can go back to the publisher with your thoughts. And I think that really does change the whole process.
And also remember, I want to say about the printing out. I think it's good to print it out. I think it's also good to look at it in thumbnail size.
Yes.
How are people going to look at it when they shop online is a good aspect. But also, one of the things I see that happens a lot, and it happens with us at BookEnds too, is if we're given multiple covers, we start to get super picky. Like, well, I don't know. I think the character's profile would look better the other direction. The end of the day, if I'm looking at 4 covers, I can probably pick them apart to death. But the truth is, if I'm a reader and walk in and look at all 4 of those covers, are they all going to grab me enough to buy the book? That's your goal. So it doesn't need to be sort of super nitpicky, because at the end of the day, it's about the overall package and the oomph it has on that first glance. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in, well, I don't know, maybe the sun should be on the left instead of the right. And that's where we sort of lose ourselves in what doesn't matter.
Also, another tip, I think it's really helpful if you get multiple options to, like you said, the thumbnail is a really good idea, but to put them all next to each other as thumbnails, because then you can be like, where does my eye go? And that's something you should listen to. Yeah,
we do that a lot. I'll do that too. I'll open it up on my screen so I can see them all together rather than scrolling through them one by one if they came that way.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I think this was helpful. Hopefully, I mean, who am I to judge? But hopefully it's helpful for everybody else. If you have questions about covers or the process, put them in the comments down below. And otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you back here next week.
Bye.